How's it going, guys? I'm KTO, and today I'm bringing you the most insane Super Bowl story of all time. Now, this story isn't about the game itself, but more about a single player. A player who disappeared the day before the Super Bowl. In one of the most bizarre situations I've ever seen. Let's get started. For this story, let's jump back to the beginning of 2003, where we approached Super Bowl 37. This was actually an intriguing matchup. We had the Raiders on their return to glory, facing off against the sudden rise of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The most interesting part about this game is the Buccaneers coach was Jon Gruden, who literally coached the Raiders the season before. What are the odds we would ever see this happen again? A coach versus his former team. The Raiders had a stacked offensive crew, led by quarterback Rich Gannon, with the likes of Hall of Famers Tim Brown and Jerry Rice. And across the line of scrimmage, the Buccaneers had one of the most dominant defenses in NFL history. Hall of Famers all across the board. The stage was set. So January 24th, 2003, 2 days before the Super Bowl, the Raiders were in a team meeting. And that's when head coach Bill Callahan came into the meeting and, in the words of Tim Brown, completely changed the game plan. And for those of you who don't understand how big of an impact this plays, this time spent is completely crucial to have success. It's what separates good teams from great teams. Bill Callahan came up with an entire new game plan just 2 days before the game. That's insane. Let's just say there was an uproar from players, but none more flustered than the starting center Barrett Robbins. A center at the line of scrimmage usually makes all the calls for the entire offensive line, making adjustments and slide protections based on the defensive alignment. Robbins was completely prepared for this game plan. Now that time spent was a complete waste. Robbins begged the coach, quote, "Do not do this to me. I don't have time to make my calls, to get my calls ready. You can't do this to me on Friday. We haven't practiced full speed. We can't get this done." But the coach didn't listen and stuck to his new game plan, which now they only had time to practice it the day before the game. Now we flash to the next day, the day before the Super Bowl. This is where the story starts to pick up.
Got him to the hotel safe, made curfew. Whew. All right, we're gonna be okay. And the phone rings in the morning. You know, anytime the phone rings, not normal hours before 8 o'clock, it's not good. Asking me, where's our guy? And my stomach just went to my toes. And he goes, he didn't show up for meetings this morning. So all day, I was calling the hospitals downtown. I was, trying to call the jails. I'm waiting for that phone call that he's dead in a ditch somewhere.
Robbins had suddenly vanished. He wasn't at practice. And players began to realize no one had seen him since the meeting the night before. It's the day before the Super Bowl, and panic starts to set in for the entire Raiders organization. Their starting center, who was a legit Pro Bowler that season, was nowhere to be found, with no way of contacting him. The dude left his wallet and phone at the hotel. Now, Barrett was definitely not a stable personality. He suffered from depression, and shockingly, had a history with disappearing. Just 2 seasons before this, he had completely vanished from the team during the week leading up to the AFC Championship game. This incident went unreported at the time, and he turned up after 24 hours, and actually started against the Ravens. Now 2 years later, he's gone again, and apparently stopped taking his meds right before the Super Bowl. So literally anything can happen. It wasn't until 8 p.m. that night that Robbins stumbled into the hotel where he ran into the head coach Bill Callahan. Robbins was so incoherent, he thought they had already won the Super Bowl. He was so messed up, the coach banished him from the team hotel. The coach had Robbins' wife come pick him up and told her to keep him away from the team during the rest of the weekend. And the next morning, Robbins' wife asked him where he should be right now, and still disoriented, he said back, "Church?" He would go on to be hospitalized for 30 days, and was eventually diagnosed with being bipolar. And while he was getting checked into the hospital, his team was playing in the Super Bowl. And for the Raiders, the day didn't go much better. They were blown out by the Buccaneers 48-21. Now let me bring you back to the night after the team meeting, right after Barrett Robbins found out about the change in game plan. Listen to what his former teammate says about him following the team meeting.
My wife, after the fact, said that she saw Barrett walking out of the family hotel that Friday night.
Right.
And she knew that we had curfew. We had curfew at 11 p.m. that night. And she thought, wow, that's really odd. Barrett is leaving, breaking curfew on Friday night. I wonder what's going on there. And
here's what actually happened. Robbins hitched a ride from the team hotel in San Diego 20 miles across the Mexican border into Tijuana. And when he was there, he literally partied all night long and into the next day. He was so delusional from being off his meds and all the drugs he had taken. Listen to this.
I was out of my mind, out of control. My life was unmanageable. I was completely living in a fantasy world. In my mind, we had already won the Super Bowl, and we were celebrating. That's how delusional I was.
What's insane to me is after this whole ordeal, he still kept a roster spot on the team, and he started at center the next season. My question is, how does this happen? How could someone possibly get their job back after something like this? But after the following season, he tested positive for steroids and was released after the season. Robbins would never play again. And then only weeks later, he was shot 3 times by police officers during a brawl in Miami Beach, which put him in a coma for nearly 2 months. And after pleading guilty to 5 charges, including attempted murder, Robbins was sentenced to 5 years probation and went into rehab. After one of the most bizarre situations in football history, Robbins' life had gotten much worse. Sadly, he hasn't been able to stay out of trouble after being arrested again last year after 2 felony counts of battery. There doesn't seem to be much hope for this man, but maybe one day he will get his life together. So thank you for watching this video, and all of you Raiders fans should be excited because it looks like your team is finally on their return to glory. This story about Barrett Robbins is insane itself, but this story has so much more to it. There's actually a conspiracy theory behind the coach and his decision to come up with the game plan. And best of luck to both teams in the Super Bowl. I can't wait. And don't forget to come make picks with me on FireFan. You actually can earn tokens now through the app. So have a good one, and I'll catch you in my next video.
Yeah.